All right. So typically when people think about wellness, it's often about nutrition, going to the gym, maybe even therapy. But for a lot of us, getting our money in order is like a huge stress factor that kind of decreases our wellness instead of making our money maybe work for us and increasing that. So my guest today, if you know him, he needs no introduction at all. But for anyone else, he's the founder and CEO of Getting to Zero Financial, Ben Turk, all the way in Manhattan. How are you, Ben?
What's up, guys? I'm
All
great.
right.
Thanks so much for having me here today.
Of course, I'm so glad that you can do this for me and for us because I'm actually really excited about this because, like I said, it's something that a lot of us struggle with, but no one wants to like talk about it. People are like scared to ask for help. And I know that we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago just to like kind of figure out what it is that you're doing so that we can get you on here. So why don't you kick it off and just tell us your origin story, how you got into all of this?
Sure. So first of all, again, thanks so much for having me here. And like you said, there tends to be a lot of like emotions around money. It's kind of like a triggering topic. You know, if people have money problems, they tend to be a little bit embarrassed about it. So there's like a little bit of guilt and shame. So it is hard to talk about. So I really appreciate what you're doing with your whole wellness venture and how you're bringing this to light. I think it's very important. And I think it's one of those things that kind of like lies beneath the surface. You know, it's not how you dress, how you look. It's more like very internal thing that people struggle with. So it's really good to get it out in the open. So, so I'm happy to tell you more about my origin story. So I actually started this company about 10 years ago. It was like a passion project of mine. I actually went to one of those seminars where they were like, write down what you are passionate about, you know, what you're good at, what means something to you. And like this finances like checked all those boxes. So this woman who gave this seminar was like, you should start a business with like what all is, you know, what encompasses all these things. So for me, it was a no-brainer. The reason I'm passionate about it is because I'm 40 years old now. When I was 25, I ran into a lot of trouble with credit card debt. And that actually a lot of financial coaches go through, they have a similar origin story where they used to be kind of a mess financially themselves. And then they kind of dug themselves out of it and learned a lot along the way. So that's exactly what happened to me. I wound up reading like every Suze, Orman, Robert Kiyosaki book, learned a lot about investing along the way, how to budget, how to kind of run your personal life like a business, which is something I preach. I think it's very important. You know, one of the things, you know, is it's very hard to start a small business, for example, if you don't have your personal finances in order. Because you think about it, when you run a business, you have a budget for everything. You have marketing, sales, you know, technology, whatever. And for your life, it's the same way. So you have to have a budget for different areas of your life in order to kind of like have your house in order. So anyway, so I learned a lot along the way about investing. You know, I figured out how to budget for a surplus each month, and that's how I got out of debt. I was actually about $24,000 in debt when I was 25 years old. And in 18 months, I paid it all off. And then I started saving. And then all of a sudden I had a surplus every month, because that's what happens when you learn how to budget. You have all this money left over. So I didn't know what to do with it. So I started saving it. I started investing it. So then I had to learn about, you know, what's a 401k, what's an IRA, what's the difference between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA. There's all these little rules, you know, and they actually change every year. So you kind of have to keep current with it. But I learned a lot about investing, and, you know, I got really into it, and it really is a lot of fun. You know, one of the things Suze Orman says is, you're ready to take your finances to the next level. You know, you've kind of got it together when the joy you receive from watching your account balance grows. The joy you get from that is bigger than the joy you get from like spending and buying things. And that's when you know you're kind of like, you've reached a turning point. You've turned a corner that's more exciting for you, because then it's going to motivate you, right? It's basic pain and pleasure motivation, right? So that's one thing that can indicate when you're on the right track. Anyway, so I turned this into a business, and I tried to actually make it work like 10 years ago full time, but I was very green at the time and I didn't really know how to turn it into a legit business. So I worked in tech full time for basically all my career in sales and business development. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I decided that I want to give this another shot. And I think it's part of like, you know, turning 40 years old. I wanted to kind of live my passion and do what I want to do with my time. You know, I have a bit of a cushion I've built up, and obviously I've, you know, hopefully I'm doing well with my investments if I'm going to be teaching people about this stuff. So
I hope so.
What's that?
So I hope so.
Yeah. So I'm actually in a very good, you know, God bless, financial position right now, where I can take the time and start this and survive for a while I build this up. So I'm very happy to be doing this, and I have a lot of passion. It doesn't feel like work for me. Like one of the things that's funny is like when I used to go into meetings in the tech business, I'd have to prepare and memorize all these facts and figures. And that's not to say I don't have to learn things for this. Obviously, I'm always learning, but it just comes so naturally to me, and I love helping people anyway. So it's really easy for me, and I get a lot of joy out of it personally. So that's the origin story.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I liked what you said about the pain and pleasure, because it's like in that moment, it might feel good to like swipe that card and like not think about it. But then when your credit card bill comes in and you have to think about it, for me, it's almost like a challenge, and I love a good challenge. So for me, like budgeting and saving money is it's like almost like a competition with myself. Like I'm going to see how little money I spend this week buying like coffee or whatever the case may be, and seeing how much I can accumulate by the end of the week or the month. So almost like for me, so I come from obviously a fitness background, and I see a lot of people in the gym or clients that come to me, and they think that they can just solve all of their problems and lose all their weight by just using Google or YouTube or Instagram. So I'm sure that you guys have the same thing where people think that they can just kind of figure things out. So tell us a little bit about like what your clients are like right now, who you're helping. I know that you work with a lot of couples. And then just what does that work look like for you? How do you get them started?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually funny that you're a personal trainer, and obviously that fits in the whole wellness thing. We're in the kind of the same category, but I liken what I do as a financial coach to a fitness coach, like what you do, because again, like you said, you could Google how to, the best diet out there. I actually read an article today. They said the Mediterranean diet's like the best diet these days.
There's always a new one.
Yeah, right. You could download a whole weight training program. I actually recently did that for myself because that's an area that I struggle with. By the way, for those of you who don't know, I met Kristen when she was my personal trainer about 5 years ago at a Crunch gym.
Yep, that's how we met.
Yeah. She's since moved on to bigger and better. But anyway, you could always look for information, right? You could Google anything, but you can't Google wisdom, and you can't Google like how to, it's not going to help you build a muscle, so that's what a coach does, right? Like you help people get into the zone working out, you motivate them. And that's what I do with people's personal finances. It's the same thing. So to answer your question, so you wanted some examples of like some people I've helped and some things I've worked at. So I can give you like one example I think of now. It's a couple of friends, they'll remain anonymous. Obviously everything's confidential, but I helped a couple a little while ago who they were struggling. The wife was a school teacher and the husband was still kind of like trying to figure things out. At the time he was selling cars, I believe. And they had two young kids. One of them at the time was I think 10 years old, and the other one was like a newborn. And they were just a mess. They had a ton of credit card debt. The wife had a lot of student loans because she had to get a master's degree to be a teacher. And the husband was just like all over he was one of these guys who's like in a new job every 6 months. I'm not criticizing that. I know it's very hard to kind of like figure things out, but it was what it was. And so his income was unstable and she had pretty stable income, but it was limited. When you're a teacher, you don't make that much money. So what we did was we looked at all their debts. We stacked their debts. There's something you do when you want to pay off your debt. It's called reverse pyramiding, where you actually list them from the largest amount to the smallest amount. Regardless of interest rate, and you just pay off the smallest one first, just to build momentum. You put all your extra money every month, so that one little debt, you pay it off. Then you have a little extra because you don't have to make that minimum payment anymore. And then you take that extra and you pay it towards the next biggest debt, and it just kind of snowballs. So that's one thing we did with them. We put them on a strict budget. I think they got out of debt in about 12 months, which was pretty fast for them considering they were like just getting by. But the real key to helping anyone is building their financial statement. And a financial statement is, if you go to a bank and you try to get a loan, it's like your report card. It's a snapshot of where you are financially. So it's basically 4 parts. So there's your monthly income and your monthly expenses, and then there's your assets and your liabilities. And so it shows you 2 numbers at the end of the day. The first number is your cash flow. Are you making or losing money every month? Are you ahead? Or are you behind? And you'd be surprised how many people are actually losing money every month,
right?
Unfortunately. But that's what I'm here for. And then there's your net worth. And your net worth is simply all your assets minus all your liabilities, your debts. So it's pretty simple. And by looking at those 2 numbers, a bank can figure out, are you a good candidate for a loan? Like, are you going to be able to pay it back? if you can't pay it back, do you have enough assets that to use as collateral to cover the loan? So anyway, but the hardest part of that, it's actually pretty simple to put together as far as the income, the assets, and the debts. The hardest part is the monthly expenses, because it's not how much you make that matters. It's how much you keep.
Mm-hmm.
And how much you keep is determined by how much you spend and what you're spending your money on. So most people don't even know where their money goes. Like, especially in this day and age when everyone's using a credit card. I mean, there are some, and by the way, this is a huge pet peeve of mine. There are some places in Manhattan now, you can't even use cash.
Yeah.
They're card only, cashless. I hate this. This is horrible for budgeting. This is horrible, okay? One of the things I recommend, especially for people who are in a lot of debt, cut up your credit. I know it's hard to hear, but cut up your credit cards and use only cash. Because that's like the only way to know. You have to feel the money in your hand. And like, you know, it's like real when it's in your hand. When you're just swiping, it doesn't, especially now, like Apple Pay, like you just like touch something and it's like, it's like funny money, right? It's not real. But money is real and it affects things.
It's actually funny. So the other day I was like, I'm going to go to Starbucks and grab coffees for us. And I went and realized I left my wallet at home. So now I had already ordered my drinks and I owed them money and I had nothing on me. I had no cash. I had no credit cards. So I was like, let me see if I can just like link from the Starbucks app to my credit card. And of course, because of the way the world is today, my credit card was still linked to my Starbucks app. And I was able to just like put in like $10 into the app. And I'm like, this is like scary. It was super convenient at the moment, but I'm like, that's very scary because like you said, it's like fake money. It's like, oh, let me just link this and do that and get into the app and $10 appeared.
Yeah, I have the same problem with Seamless. I have a really bad Seamless habit, and almost every week I delete the app, but then I wind up putting it back on. And they keep my credit card data. So today, actually, I deleted my credit card data. And so I was like, I can, even if I get it, because I actually one of those people that cut out my card. I don't use cards anymore.
Right.
So, but then they have my Apple Pay ID. So all I have to do is touch the thing.
Yes, because unfortunately you try to go with just cash, but the world around us isn't allowing that.
Yeah, and you got to think about it. Now, it's under the guise of it's convenient for everyone. Okay, true. But really, why do they do that? Because they want to make it easy for you to give them your money.
Exactly.
So it's all it is. It's just to get your money. That's it.
Exactly.
You know, it's not for your convenience. It's for them to make more money. Like, so you have to think about these things, you know? It's important.
Definitely. So I know that I was like reading through your website and talking to you, and I know that compound interest is something that you're like super hyped up on, but like me, I don't really understand all of this stuff. So what is compound interest and how do I get it to make it work for me for the next 20 years?
Sure. So I'll start out by saying, you know who Warren Buffett is?
Yes, that I'm familiar with.
Good. Okay. So Warren Buffett is regarded as the world's best long-term investor. He invests for the long haul. He specializes in, picking great companies that are currently undervalued, buying them, holding forever. And actually, they've done studies on this. They say that the best performing portfolio, I love this. This is so interesting. The best performing portfolios are people that are dead.
Really?
Think about that. Yeah, because they can't move stuff around. They can't buy and sell. It just sits there. It just grows.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But it's to Warren Buffett's point. Like, if you're constantly trading and buying and selling, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to just buy and make a decision, stick with it, listen to your inner voice, and then things grow. Anyway, that's Warren Buffett is. And Warren Buffett actually said this. He said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Think about that. And it's amazing. Okay, so compound interest is basically your money working for you, making your time, your money. Time working for you, making your money grow. Time is money, money's time. Sometimes they confuse that.
Right.
But basically, one thing I like to tell people that blows people's mind is you don't have to work. If you make a decent salary or your salary grows over time, you don't have to work for more than 20 years. And you don't have to be a teacher, a firefighter, or a cop with a pension. Okay, you can work for a private company with a basic 401k and an IRA. If you max those out, you do not have to work for more than 20 years, and you could retire comfortably at the age of 42 years old, like say you start when you're 22, and retire comfortably for the rest of your life. And when I say it to people, nobody believes me, but then I show them the math, like Andrew Yang, little math thing he wears. You can't argue with math, okay? So I actually show people, I'm an old school pen and paper, yellow pad calculator guy. And that's how I do all my sessions, by the way. So it's
Yeah.
very simple, easy to understand. I actually show people, yeah, thank you. I love it. I show people how compound interest works. It's basically you save money every year, it grows at a certain rate, and then the next year you start with that new amount, then you add money and it grows at a certain rate. And if you just keep doing that over and over, in 20 years, you're going to have a lot of money. So if you just simply max out, the math goes like this. If you max out your tax advantage retirement accounts, which if you work for a private company, you could put $19,000 a year into a 401k, and you could put $6,000 into an IRA. So that's $25,000 a year. So if you save $25,000 a year, which is a little more than $2,000 a month, which sounds like a lot, but believe me, if you actually did your budget and you live in New York City, you're probably making a lot of money. You could find ways to save that money.
Right.
In 20 years, you'll have way over $1 million. You'll have, like, depending on the rate that the market returns, anywhere from like 1.2 to 1.7 million dollars. And you could just Google right now, compound interest calculator, play with the math, and you'll see.
So what about people that aren't making $90,000 a year? So I feel like that's what gets people kind of in the hole. Not everyone's going to be making a huge salary at work. And then they feel like they can't budget and they can't they can't save $2,000 a month. So what's your advice for situations like that? Do you need to have a huge salary in order to be able to save?
No, you don't. Because again, it's the more you save, not how much you make. There's actually an interesting story about that. I know this is hard to understand, but another thing also is, yes, when you start your career and you're younger, you make less money, but you also have more time. So you have more time for your money to grow. And one thing that gets people is generally as their salary increases, their expenses increase. There's actually, I forget what the word is, but there's a word for this. It's called like lifestyle inflation or something like that.
Right.
Basically, people automatically, they get so excited they want to spend. Their spending, increases with their salary, which is bad.
Yeah,
you want to be in control of your spending. So the natural thing to do is spend more, but you actually have to start saving more. You could spend more also, just keep it within 1% and be responsible about it. But the other thing is that, so one thing I always think of, I always read these funny stories about personal finance, and I remember them because they're so interesting to me. But there was a story that came out about like 10 years ago about a librarian who I think he made like $50,000 a year or something in some, like Midwest town, something like that, where you can make that and live a good life. And he saved and invested every paycheck until he retired, and then I think he died at like 70 or 80 or something like that. But he just consistently, like the tortoise and the hare, man, he just saved every time he got paid. And when he died, he left something like $2 million to the library, because he's one of these guys who would just read books all day, and he loved learning, he loved books. So he wanted to give that gift to the library. And then the library built out like a whole wing for him and named it after him. But nobody knew. This is so funny. Nobody knew how much money this guy had. There's a great book called The Millionaire Next Door.
Uh-huh.
And, living in New York, you would think like that this book isn't true, but it is. So there's a lot of people in this country. There's more millionaires in America than I think any other country in the world. I'm pretty sure that used to be recently. Anyway,
I'll have to fact check this when we're done.
Yeah, I'll have to fact check this. China may be beating us now, but anyway. But you'd be surprised. The book is all about like how you'd be surprised who these millionaires are. A lot of them drive like pickup trucks, and they wear cowboy hats, and they live modest lifestyles. Like Warren Buffett lives in the house he grew up in. You don't have to inflate your lifestyle with the money you make. So to answer your question originally, you don't have to make a lot of money. Like there are countless stories of athletes and rock stars who make a ton of money and they lose it all because they don't know how to control it. It's about controlling your spending and having discipline and running your life like a business and saving 1% of your salary all the time and consistently investing it and letting that money work for you over time, letting your time work for you. But let me tell you something. When I started doing this and investing, I had nothing when I was 27 years old. When I started 26, 27, started investing. And now, like, I can't even, I check in my Fidelity account. I can't even believe it. And like the last couple of years, it's gone up a lot because the market's been doing really, really well. I'm like, oh my God, like, how is this possible? Like, it grows faster than you think. Like, a lot of people get overwhelmed. Oh, I don't have anything. It's going to take forever. It doesn't take that long. Money grows fast,
But it doesn't grow on trees.
What's that?
I said, but it doesn't grow on trees, and time does.
Nothing wrong too. But time goes by quick, and time is money, baby.
Yes, exactly.
So,
And going back to what
yeah.
you said, it's almost like that Instagram versus reality comparison. Like everyone wants to make it look like they have a bunch of money, but then like you see like Mark Zuckerberg or whatever his name is, and he's just wearing like a black t-shirt and jeans, and then meanwhile you have this like 19-year-old kid that's like working at McDonald's, and he like tries to be like super like, I have money, I have this, I have that. So I think that's another thing that we should touch on, is just to not compare yourself to other people, because I think that that's where the shame comes in, of people being afraid to talk about it and feeling like they're the only ones, like, oh my God, all my friends are doing so well, my family's doing so well, and then they're silently suffering. They're embarrassed to reach out to anyone. So do you feel like people are almost nervous or embarrassed when they try to get in touch with you? Because sharing money is like very personal, and telling someone this is all of my debt, people don't even want to tell their spouse how much debt they're in. So for someone to tell you, like, how does that conversation even begin? And what are your first steps? Do you tell them to like do a list of like their spendings, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so you asked a lot of questions. So let me start.
Sorry.
I have a couple of things I can say. It's okay.
I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah, no, it's great. So first of all, like we said before, there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes with this topic, okay? And it's very sensitive. And our society, we live in a very keeping up with the Joneses society, it's very superficial, and that's just the way it is. That's capitalism, whatever it caused it is what it is. So a lot of people, like you mentioned, Instagram, we live in a very show-off society. Everyone wants to look like they have money and look great, and like, what you have to realize is that most people are full of BS, okay? And I've actually really, now that I've started doing this again, I have been working with a lot of people recently who appear successful, and like they're struggling, they wear nice clothes, they make a high salary, but they're up to their eyeballs in debt. They can't sleep at night. I actually had, you asked how do people reach out about this? It's hard. So I go to a lot of networking groups, and I do my little 15, or 45-minute commercial. And then, but you know what? No one comes up to me afterwards because they're embarrassed. They don't want other people to see. So I get all these emails. Like I hand out my bill, I get all these emails that night. It's like, Ben, I'm really struggling. I need your help. Like everyone wants to be not, and it's fine. I get it. Like,
yeah,
totally cool. But one guy actually reached out to me, and he just got married a month ago, and he said, Ben, I need a lot of help. I'm really excited about getting my finances in order, but my wife, who I just married, doesn't want to talk about money, and he's like, I was like, dude, what's going on? Are there hidden debts? People have this stuff,
Right.
How would he know? Like that's why I recommend, if you're going to marry someone, you should do a financial counseling session. That's one of the things I do, so that everything's out in the open, and you have to be okay with these things. If you're going to share your life with someone, marriage is a social contract,
Right.
It's not all romance and Disney movie. It's
Right.
day-to-day budgeting, and that's a big part of marriage.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, so people are a little ashamed of things, and our society puts so much pressure to look good all the time and act like you have I forget, what was the second part of your question? Sorry, I feel like there was a couple things in there.
I was just asking if you felt like that shame coming from people when they're asking you, and when they do finally come to you, is there like some quick things that you start them off with? Like, okay, so we're going to meet, let's say next week, but in the meantime, I want you to list out such and such. So what steps do we have to take before maybe meeting with you?
So I actually send out a pre-work email. It's just a couple of bullets to prepare. So the biggest thing is actually we need to access all of your accounts. So you'd be surprised how many people have accounts they can't log into, especially if they haven't looked at them in a while or they don't want to look at them. I had a friend who used to get her financial statements, her student loan statements in the mail and throw them away. Like she wouldn't even open them. So could you imagine her trying to log into her online account? I mean, people don't know their own passwords. So
Right.
I say, make sure you get into all your accounts. That's like the biggest thing, really. And just have an open mind and kind of mentally prepare. Because I tell you what, I mean, it's traumatic. People get emotional when we go through their budget. And, I recently helped out another friend of mine, and we were going through her monthly expenses, and like she was getting upset. And it happens, you know. Almost a lot of what I do is just like almost being like a little bit of a therapist. You know, good thing I minored in psychology.
There you go.
But yeah, no, it's hard, and you know, people aren't going to open up to you unless they trust you. So you know, a lot of my job is building rapport and getting people to sort of like relax a little. I actually like to put on some calming music when we work together. Have a cup of tea, you know, put some nice, comfortable clothes on. Like seriously, like it's a process. You know, I'm usually at someone's kitchen table, and you know, it's a stressful thing. So we gotta, you know, make it comfortable for people.
Awesome. So I guess I just want to like close out with maybe if you have like any advice for someone that feels like they're staying up at night. I know that we talked about like it is a wellness concern in that a lot of people will not be able to sleep at night because they know that their credit card minimum is due and they don't know how much they're getting in their paycheck this week and things like that. And it can be super stressful. So is there any advice that you have for someone that's like, finally, like maybe I actually should start to budget because it's not something I've ever done before?
Yeah, I would just say, like, don't be scared. Don't be ashamed. You're not the only one going through this. A lot of people, you know, suffer in silence with this. You don't have to. It's easier for me to say that than for people to believe it, but it is true. And once you kind of take a look at things and like bring things to light, I tell you, there's always a sense of relief after the first session. It's hard to get through, but when people have that clarity of, oh, this is why I'm going into debt every month. I overspend $300 a month and I don't even know it. Like there's always a sense of relief. And then you're ready to take the next step, which is tweaking things and starting to learn how to get your spending under control. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, I would say. You're not alone. You'd be surprised how many people appear successful. The other thing I'll say is, like, you know, you shouldn't be ashamed because not only are a lot of other people going through this, it's just not taught. It's not taught in school. Parents, for some reason, parents didn't teach me anything. My dad's a financial advisor, and he never taught me about personal finance. Go figure, right? The shoemaker's kid runs on foot, right? It's true. And like one of my clients, just an example, you know, I swear to God, she speaks 10 languages. She plays violin. She's an opera singer. She, what else? Jesus. She has like 2 master's degrees, very well educated, owns her own apartment. But guess what? Her finances are a mess because it's just a skill set. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're dumb it's just a skill set you didn't learn. You know, it's like anything else. It's like learning to drive. You know, your first time you learn it, you stall. Okay. So it doesn't mean you stop, you quit.
Right.
You figure it out. You just keep moving forward. So it's not that hard to get a handle on. And honestly, once you set it up and it's automated, it's not that hard. You know, your savings comes out of your paycheck automatically. Your retirement comes out automatically, and you just learn to kind of live on a little bit less, and it's very doable. So I would say just know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's really not that difficult once you kind of get over it mentally. And there's a lot of other people going through it, so don't stress.
Definitely. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One is, how can anyone that wants to start budgeting with you get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can email me at ben@gettingtozerofinancial.com. You can go to my website. It's a little bit long. I recognize that. www.gettingtozerofinancial.com. You could text me, call me, my personal cell phone, 347-242-0464. I'm assuming we'll post my information somewhere.
Yes, definitely.
After this.
But
yeah,
now I'm going to stop you and tell you that I'm a little upset because when you were my client and I was your trainer, I never got your phone number. So when we were first having our assessment, Crunch gave me just your email address. And I was like, well, can I have his phone number so I can like call him to schedule it? And they were like, he wouldn't give us his phone number. And I was like, okay, then I'll just email him.
I'm big on privacy. I never give out my cell phone. It's amazing that I just did that because I hate getting those robocalls because they all sell your number to all these spammers, you know?
Right. So I had to work around that. And it was fine. But I feel like after I got to know you, I was like, okay, you know what? It kind of makes sense that you didn't give me his phone number or give the gym his phone number.
Hey, once I got the invite to your birthday party, I knew I was in the clear. So
yes. Maybe I'll throw a big 34th birthday party and we can celebrate again. All right. I think I said I had 2 questions, but no, I actually have 2 more. One, is going to be, what is the last book or article or email list that you subscribe to that you think is super helpful in this financial?
Sure. So yeah, I actually just added a section on my website about this because I love reading. I'm reading I always read like 7 books at a time, and I just get bored, so I switch back and forth.
Right.
But the 2 books I recommend the most, the first one is the first one that I read that got me started in this whole thing is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And by the way, that book started like a whole revolution. And he totally called out the housing crisis before it happened, and he's very, very smart. And the other one is, I actually just read this book, excuse me, it's by one of my favorite speakers and thought leaders. It's by Suze Orman. It's called The 9 Steps to Financial Freedom. And that book's great because it was the first book that spoke to the emotional side of money. Like all the other personal finance books before her, and this was written, I think, in like 1997 or 99 or something, were all just about numbers and dollars and cents. But Suze Orman, one of the reasons I love her so much, I used to watch her show all the time when it was on CNBC. She talks about, there's always a story, right? There's always a story underneath. Why is someone in debt? Why is someone overspending? Why are they hiding their debts? Everyone has like some childhood story. It sounds kind of funny, but it's true.
Right.
And that's why everyone has like a money story. And that book helps you like uncover that. And then you could start to realize it's just a story. It doesn't have to control you, and it's not serving your needs right now. And I love that book because it really dives into the psychological part of it. And then it also gives a lot of practical advice. So those are the 2 books I'd recommend.
Awesome. And then my last question is, now that after you got out of debt, how good do you sleep at night?
I sleep like a baby. I was actually telling someone the other night, like someone asked me like, so from the time you get to bed, go into your bed, and the time you fall asleep, how long is that? And I was like, 10 seconds. Like, I'm just like, the more older you get, the more sleep you need, I think, so I love my sleep.
Sleep is very important.
Yeah. And especially now, I mean, it's funny, but like, I'm not working a full-time job anymore. So a lot of people in my position would be freaking out a little bit. I'm fine. Like, I know I don't have to work for a long time. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but like, hopefully someone that's offering financial advice would be in that situation, but it's true,
Right.
So I'm very fortunate, and, I'm a fast learner, and I really took to these things that I learned, and they've paid off. So I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Ben. And you are someone that I know that I trust and would trust with my money. And I know that your story is real. So that's kind of why I wanted to have you on here, because you can read books about people that you don't even know and actually know what their true story is. But living proof right there. Sleeps like a baby.
There you go.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben. And I'll make sure I put all of your information in the YouTube video description so that everyone can get in touch with you anonymously.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much. Take care.